posters. Well, actually 7, although there is one person that I cannot see here. So the idea is that you present your poster and share with us the main ideas in about 4 or 5 minutes, and then to have 4 minutes for questions or comments, okay? So that there is enough time for the 7 people presenting. If one of the speakers is not here, we might have a little bit more time at the end of the session, but we have to finish right at 10 o'clock because the plenary section starts at that time. So our first presenter is Ana-Isabel Martínez-Hernández, and the poster has been prepared by herself and Begoña Bellés-Fortuño. The title is Accommodating the Syllabus to a Partially Sighted Student in the English Language Classroom. So the floor is yours, Ana-Isabel.
Right, thank you, Maria. Well, I hope you can see the poster.
Yes, we can, very well.
Okay, fantastic, thank you very much. Well, this poster, this research is part of an ongoing research that I am conducting along with Dr. Begoña Bellés. And well, what we did was to try to accommodate a typical language test to, as you said, a partially sighted student, because we were not sure of the tools that we needed to adapt that test. So we required help from the diversity unit at university, because we believe that education is a right and it should be offered to everybody, and we need to cater for students' needs, right? As our job as teachers, we need to provide for everybody. And despite many regulations and theoretical legal background, it's not a reality yet, at least at university. Integration is not a reality yet, or inclusion, let's say. So we wanted to provide this accessibility to students and cater for their needs, and we did that through the use and the help of technology. Technology is everywhere right now. So our aims were to cater for diversity, to avoid discrimination, have some equity in the classroom, right, to be equal and provide equity. And we wanted to accommodate the test. And we tried to use certain guidelines that define a universal design. So for the oral test, what we did, well, we usually have these images, and of course the partially sighted student could not see the images well. So what we did was we modified that activity, and instead of comparing and describing the pictures, the student just had to answer a question related to those pictures. So the teacher would describe the pictures for them, and the student would answer a question related to that topic. Whereas in all those parts where there was text, so reading comprehension or writing even, what we did was to use a read aloud tool that was installed in the student's laptop. Right, so that was a text to speech. And we also accommodated the time. We gave the student twice as much time, even though it was only suggested that we gave them 50%, but the student needed more time, so we needed to adapt that on the fly, on the spot. We provided the same location for the exam because we thought that this was it provided a more inclusive environment, let's say, right? Other than telling the student, no, you come at a different time, different day. That was a bit segregative, so we thought it was more appropriate to have it in the same place. Although with the multiple choice test, we didn't provide an answer sheet to the student. We just thought it was more convenient to them to write their answers as they navigated through the Word document. So the results we obtained were that the speaking and the writing tasks were properly adapted, so the student did not struggle. However, in comprehension tasks like the listening or the reading and use of English, the student did struggle a little bit. The listening caused some anxiety and frustration, which led to incompletion of the test, and we needed to readapt it on the fly. Maybe we had to omit certain parts. And the reading and use of English, in those long texts, the student had to navigate vertically through the text and horizontally, so that the text-to-speech would read it out loud for them. So that hampered completion as well. They needed more time. So the conclusions here that we reached were that for the reading, for instance, that caused a dilemma, because was the student actually reading, or was the student actually listening to machine read for them? Because it was not Braille. Had it been Braille, then the student would have been reading, but not in this case. So that caused a bit of a dilemma there. We reached the conclusion that with longer texts, we need to fragment the text. So instead of reaching all the end of the sentence, of the line, then we should break the lines so that it's easier to navigate vertically. We did reach high inclusion, although not total inclusion. And well, we could reach some certain guidelines that worked for this student that might be applied for other students. And well, that was really quick, and that was mainly it.
Thank you very much, Ana-Isabel. Very well done, and thank you for accomplishing the time. Thank you. Fantastic. Very clear, very good explanations. I wonder if there are any questions or comments for Ana-Isabel. Since we are very few in the section, you can either write your questions or comments in the chat and checking it and there is nothing, or you can connect your microphones. Feel free for that. In the meantime, I have a comment. I would like to highlight the importance of teacher training for inclusive education, because your poster is clearly framing inclusive education. And as we all know, in inclusive education, we have different aspects, and you have touched on one of them, okay? I'm glad that the University of Alicante has in its plan for training teachers some courses for giving tools to teachers for inclusive education. I wonder if at your university or at the universities of people in the session, you also have this type of training, because it's really essential. Some people don't know how to deal with the students with special needs.
Well, I'd say that rather than training itself, we do have some guidance, and that unit, the diversity unit, they do provide some guidance to the teacher, and they do organize some courses from time to time about on certain needs, like I don't know, THD, or maybe for students with hearing impairments, visual impairments, but it's not something that it's very at a university level, you know. It's just the teacher themselves who shows interests, and then
that's very good. So that's an area that needs to further development in all universities. Probably. Okay, thank you very much. So if there are no questions or comments, what I will do is I'll continue with the section, and maybe if there is a question of the comment at the end or for any of the posters, I will open again the possibility of commenting, right? So our next speaker, our next presenter is Carolina Girón-García. The title of the poster is the use of the Moodle platform to integrate WebQuest-based model tasks in the ESP classroom. And this poster has been prepared also with Antonio-José Silvestre-López. So Carolina, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good. Can you see the poster?
Yes, we can very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, it is well known that new technologies have become part of our daily lives in the last decade, especially since last March 2020 with the COVID pandemic. And well, since then, and especially universities, the field of education has faced many challenges, as well as changes in their curricula. For example, materials that were to be adapted to online formats, as well as other types of resources employed in a particular course. Apart from that, we need to be conscious of new generations of students that demand new methodologies from the teacher and which they expect to be applied in the classroom. For this reason, as teachers, we consider that we have the responsibility to train our students in the digital medium, since the simple fact of using ICTs from childhood does not mean that they are 100% digital natives. They need that specific training, especially when it comes to fulfilling tasks for a specific course objective. Furthermore, we also think that promoting ICTs in the classroom will engage students in their own learning process and even more become more autonomous learners. Within this context, we deem it necessary to adapt course materials taking into account task-based language teaching tools, since several studies have reported that effectiveness of integrating them in the classroom, as for example, using different resource types integrated into, for example, a first-generation WebQuest, second-generation TalentQuest, and even third-generation WebQuest-based model tasks, which are also called cyber tasks. So the novelty in this research is that there is no previous evidence of the cyber task adaptation into a Moodle platform. So this study presents the first adaptation of the cyber task model to Moodle through its integration into a lesson about psychological therapies, which was designed within an ESP subject for bachelor's degree students of psychology of a Spanish university. In that respect, our aim is to evaluate the overall perception of the task and the resources integrated in that lesson in terms of appropriateness, usefulness to learn content and vocabulary, and engagement in the completion of the task. So for that matter, the following research questions were addressed. First one, to what extent are the resources, video, text, and a combination of text and video used in this lesson are appropriate for the completion of each of the questions? The second research question, to what extent are the resources in each question useful in order to learn content, which is in relation to the third research question. To what extent are the resources in each question useful in order to learn specialized vocabulary in the psychological context? Finally, the last research question is to what extent do the resources used in each question foster students' engagement? So now the methodology, we can see that a total of 28 students participated in this experiment. There was an experimental group and a control group. To what the experimental group is concerned, their achievement was measured with pre and post questionnaires targeting the notions tackled in the lesson, before and after the completion of the lesson. And to what the control group is concerned, the pre and post test questionnaires were also administered to them, but we gave more importance to the experimental group. Finally, the results, the students' perception of the task and the resources were obtained through a qualitative questionnaire that was run on the experimental group after instruction, involving questions about the appropriateness of each kind of resource to complete the task, also their usefulness to learn content and vocabulary, and the perceived engagement while completing that task, that lesson. So, as a conclusion, considering that this is an exploratory study, the results demonstrate a remarkable influence of the task on students' learning. So students' perceived internet text resources was perceived as the most useful type for learning content and vocabulary. The combination of text and video resources was also perceived as the most engaging one. Video resources were perceived as the least engaging type and seemed quite a shocking fact to us, considering that digital natives seem to prefer video resources. Some causes of these students' perceptions could be the potential influence of language proficiency level and also learning styles, their personal learning styles. So we really think that further investigation should be conducted in this line. And just as a final line, we think that the main focus has been on the experimental group for the purpose of this work. Since the results obtained from this group seem more relevant, they learned a little bit more in comparison to the control group. So that's it. Hope it's clear.
Thank you, Carolina. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Are there any questions or comments for Carolina? I cannot see any in the chat.
Hi, I would just like to make a comment.
Yes,
and it's something that she mentioned, and I totally agree with, that she said that the fact that people are born with a phone in their hands, basically, does not make them digital natives. They still need some guidance. And I have also noticed that in my students that sometimes we expect them to have certain command of technologies, but they need to be trained. They don't really have that knowledge. So I just wanted to share my agreement on that.
Okay, thank you.
And Carolina, since this is just an exploratory study, do you plan to continue incorporating more students in the following academic years?
Yeah, we are incorporating more students. We are even implementing this kind of activity with students from other degrees. So I think it's a good idea continuing implementing with this kind of tasks, which are aimed with specific objectives according to the course, according to the degree. So we think it's really necessary, and that training is necessary since, of course, as Ana-Isabel said, we totally agree on that, that students are not 100% digital native. So we need to give them that training.
For sure. Yeah, and I really like that at the end of the poster, you have mentioned that students' learning style has an influence on students' answers. I was also wondering, what about exploring multiple intelligences, right? Because some students, of course, they are very much interrelated. So there are particular intelligences that are much more developed in some students. So maybe that is also going to affect the answers they give to your questions.
Yeah, this is something. This is also a study we are starting right now. I'm working with another colleague. We are thinking about multiple intelligences and this type of task as well. So yeah, thank you very much for your comment. We have that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, because I think this study has a huge potential. You are just as an exploratory phase, but I think I can see it really growing, and it's really necessary. Really necessary.
Yeah. Okay,
I cannot see, you are very welcome. I cannot see any comments in the chat, so maybe what we can do is continue with the next poster, and again at the end of the session, just in case somebody can think of a question or a comment, I will give you the floor again. So thank you very much, Carolina. And now our next presenter is Antonio-José Silvestre-López. And the title of the poster is Uses and Functions of Conceptual Metaphor in Pedagogical Meditation Discourse. So thank you, Antonio. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Just let me share with you some, I don't know if you can see the poster. Can you?
Not yet. Now we can see it.
Okay. So I don't know if you're metaphor experts or even know about the metaphor theory, but I have planned to introduce a poster dealing with the metaphor theory, but I think like if we have just maybe 5 minutes. Sorry about the video. I seem to have some problems with the camera. Anyway, I'll just go straight to the point, and maybe we can discuss a bit on what metaphors are and any questions you might have. Well, the idea of this study is to analyze the role of conceptual metaphor. You know, metaphors basically are associations, mental connections between two areas of experience that are connected somehow with some communicative purpose at some point. Now, these are realized in discourse in a series of expressions, right? So they can be traced in discourse by discourse analysis and through methods of metaphor identification, right? So because metaphor is a powerful tool in communicating subjective experiences, like, for example, when we're talking about thoughts, about emotions, psychotherapy as well. And also in meditation discourse, there's been a series of studies that have been conducted and that have shown that metaphor is a really prolific tool in communicating about inner events. And among these studies, space has been seen as a really productive domain. So the point of this study is to analyze or explore the discourse manifestations of the space source domain in the characterization of representative metaphors, right? So that a metaphor is a connection between a target domain, like the area that is understood according to the source domain. It's another area of experience that is used to understand the target, right? And that was done in a corpus of pedagogical talks in which different meditation teachers explain what is meditation to a non-expert audience. Because I wanted to be sensitive to the communicative dimension, I included also deliberate and non-deliberate metaphor uses, where deliberate metaphor uses entail the use of the source domain explicitly in the example. So let me give you an example so you can understand. So for example, in this case, you say you have like what you are, that this is an example we will address later on. what you are doesn't actually do meditation. You could say that what you are is not the meditator. What you are is the wide open space. Like mentioning the wide open space is a way of including the source domain. So you're talking about the meditator as a wide open space where meditation takes place, right? So this is like the case of a deliberate metaphor. Okay, coming back to the point of the study. So I wanted to include deliberate metaphor uses and non-deliberate uses, and also the functions of these uses in this course. What did I do? Well, I created a small corpus of talks, and I analyzed them inductively. It's a bottom-up process to discover all potential conceptual metaphors, deliberate uses and their functions. I used deliberate metaphor identification procedure, DMIP, which is the standard method for identifying conceptual metaphor in this course. And then I use also Atlas TI as an aid to analyze the corpus. So for every quotations, for every quotation, I added like codes like the target domain, the source domain, the function, the and codes related to deliberate metaphor uses or non-deliberate metaphor uses. And then once the coding was done, the stages I followed was retrieving the most frequent codes for source domains related to space, and then also comparing among these frequent source domain codes, cross-checking the most frequent target domains so that I could get like the most frequent metaphors, then also deliberate and non-deliberate metaphor uses and their functions. And the result of that is fairly something similar to what you see on table 1. Of course, this is like a summary of the whole study. But in that table shows like the target domain, like the meditator, and also source domains related to space. So it's like the meditator is space, that is the metaphor. Then you have like realizations, like 17, 3 non-deliberate, 14 deliberate metaphor, and so on and so forth. The present moment is spaciousness, like undefined space, or meditation is spaciousness, or a landscape, or a building. So these are the metaphors that I found in this course. These two, these examples are coherent in talking about space in a specific way, which is all metaphors start with the notions of undefined space. So the meditator is an undefined space, or the present moment is an undefined space, or meditation is an undefined space. But then when we deal with deliberate metaphor uses, we find more fine-grained scenarios. Like instead of an undefined space, we find the meditator being pictured as a home, as an ocean, as the sky, as a landscape. So we will see that in examples. Like I'll go back to the functions afterwards. So for the metaphor, the meditator is spaciousness. I used 2 examples. One is that is non-deliberate and also a deliberate metaphor use. So the first example reads, so the moment you're trying to release or let go of a thought or a feeling, basically you're in a deep resistance to that thought or feeling. You don't want it within you. Within you, right, is like the trigger of the metaphor. This is a non-deliberate metaphor use in which simply the notion of undefined space is put forward, right? It has an explanatory function, and it contrasts with another use, another deliberate metaphor use, which creates like this. What you are doesn't actually do meditation. You could say that what you are is not the meditator. What you are is this wide open space in which all thoughts, all sensations, everything, the entire world is deeply allowed to rise and dissolve. You could say that what you are doesn't do meditation, but what you are is the space for meditation. So it's like it is making explicit the meditator as a space in which everything happens, right? Which actually is not, but this is a metaphor. So these are the sorts of metaphors that I found. Another metaphor like the meditator is the sky or the ocean. This is a mixed metaphor. Reads, many people think that meditation is about stopping thought, but the sky doesn't need to stop the clouds. The ocean doesn't need to stop its waves. We're not trying to stop thoughts. We're remembering the field, the wide open space in which thoughts are allowed. So these are the ideas. Normally, deliberate metaphors are used to help the adversary to reconceptualize a topic. In this case, the notion of meditator, right? So normally we think meditation is leaving the mind blank, or meditators are supposed to behave in a specific way. These are trying to reconceptualize the idea of the meditator by using these images, right? So the most prolific functions that I found in discourse are obviously in pedagogical talk and explanatory functions, but also reframing a topic, fostering the reconceptualization of that topic, evoking imagery, like quasi-perceptual imagery, but also grabbing the audience's attention. As a matter of conclusion, it can be seen that while deliberate metaphor uses are fewer in the corpus, they are realized in more elaborated scenarios, right? More fine-grained source domains. Also, the functions are obviously the most ordinary explanatory functions in non-deliberate and deliberate metaphor uses, whereas in deliberate metaphor uses, we find the main function being both, actually, evoking sensory experiences like recalling like external perception scenarios, and also reconceptualizing the topics towards more mindful moments. And then we can see that these metaphors can be used as and actually are used as pedagogical tools. There's an ongoing project in which we're dealing with how metaphors are used to frame different concepts related to mindfulness and meditation in lay, religious, and spiritual contexts. And we're also testing the effects on guided meditation. So we've got already an article on that, and well, this is what we're doing so far. I think I'd be really happy to answer any question you have, and sorry if you have like taken more space than expected.
Thank you, Antonio-José. Very, very interesting. Are there any questions or comments for him? I cannot see any in the chat. In the meantime, I would like to say, you mentioned that you created this small corpus of talks. Are you planning to increase it in the future to incorporate more talks?
Well, the study was done with that corpus. We've got a large corpus from different genera. We've including like mindfulness manuals from psychologists. We're including like religious perspective from Buddhism. So we're comparing the kind of language that is being used in each of these contexts. So we have like different parts of different corpora. So this is just just a tiny part of it.
Okay. And yes, of course, the study concentrates on metaphor, and you have your conclusions. I was wondering that maybe in the future it would be very revealing to incorporate the system of appraisal by Martin and White. So I think that would also give you some clues to continue deepening on the corpus, because I have seen that in some of the metaphors you have like some emphasizers, for example. So maybe in the future that could be another area to be explored.
Okay, thank you.
As a suggestion.
Thank you.
That's another study, of course, it's not this one.
I mean, these are actually part of how deliberate metaphor is rendered in this course. So that's incorporating the deliberate metaphor use. Thank you.
You're welcome. So no comments. So if not, again at the end, just in case any of you can get any inspiration later on. So thank you very much, Antonio-José. And the next speaker is Fabrizio Ruggeri, and the poster is called Nuevas tecnologías y análisis de corpus en la enseñanza de una lengua extranjera en contexto académico, un estudio de casos. O cuando tú quieras, Fabrizio, muchas gracias.
Ok, buenos días. Bien, ¿se puede ver bien? Sí, ¿no? ¿Verdad? Vale.
No, todavía no vemos nada porque no estás compartiendo. Tienes que compartir como has hecho antes con el botoncito de abajo de la pantalla. Ahora mismo no vemos el póster.
Ok, perfecto. Ok, ahora sí.
Ahora sí, perfecto, gracias.
Ok, ¿está bien cómo dimensiona? ¿Las dimensiones bien?
Sí, si puede ser incluso un poco más cerca, pues mejor, pero se puede leer.
Ahora sí, ¿no? ¿Verdad?
Sí, perfecto.
Ok, perfecto. Buenos días. Bien, ¿qué hemos hecho en este estudio de caso? Hemos empezado con una hipótesis inicial y hemos pensado que el uso de las redes sociales, en este caso Facebook, influye positivamente en la adquisición del léxico en una lengua extranjera. En este caso se trataba del italiano en el grado de lenguas modernas en la Universidad Complutense de Madrid, con 2 grupos, cada grupo de 30 estudiantes, y en el grupo experimental hemos como input hemos usado Facebook con varios posts y el libro de texto del curso, el manual del curso, y un grupo de control que no ha usado en ningún momento para ningún tipo de actividad complementaria Facebook, y solo usó el libro de texto del curso. El curso era de 60 horas, el mismo libro de texto, y el grupo experimental contestó en Facebook con la escritura de unos cuantos posts a unos inputs que eran constituidos por fotos, vídeos y textos. Que se crearon dos corpus escritos con las respuestas de cada grupo a 21 inputs que eran constituidos por fotos, vídeos y textos. 21 posts, algunos publicados por el profesor, por el docente, y otros, más o menos un 40% publicados de manera autónoma por los estudiantes. En ningún momento, en ningún caso, tanto por el grupo experimental como por el grupo de control, en ningún momento ninguno de los estudiantes fue obligado a la publicación de nada. Quiero decir que la participación fue en todo momento completamente voluntaria. Se crearon así dos corpus escritos con las respuestas de cada grupo, y luego desde cada corpus se procedió a la extracción y al procesamiento de las palabras nocionales, o sea, de las palabras léxicas. Eso quiere decir los verbos, los adjetivos, los sustantivos y los adverbios de los dos grupos, para determinar y comparar la densidad y la diversidad léxicas de los corpus. ¿Cómo se hizo esto? Con el uso de dos herramientas de la lingüística computacional. Una es Profiling UD, que es un software que se basa en otra herramienta de la lingüística computacional, que es UD-Pipe. Entonces, con las dos herramientas se procedió al análisis cuantitativo de los textos analizados, de los corpus, de los textos analizados. Y estos son los resultados, ¿no? Como se puede ver aquí, la media de la densidad léxica fue en el grupo experimental del 0,55 y en el grupo de control fue del 0,5. ¿Okay? ¿Qué quiere decir esto? Aquí ya lo vemos, que la media de la densidad léxica del corpus del grupo experimental fue del 10% superior en comparación a la del grupo de control. Otro dato que tenemos con la extracción de las palabras nocionales de los corpus es la media del TTR Lemma Chunks, que nos da la idea de la diversidad léxica del corpus. Entonces, en el grupo experimental fue del 0,62 y en el grupo de control fue del 0,54. Digo, esta es una diferencia del 14,8% en favor del grupo experimental. O sea que eso quiere decir que el grupo experimental, que fue el grupo que usó Facebook, produjo un corpus con una mayor diversidad léxica. Y luego, la media del TTR Lemma Chunks 200, que son las primeras 200 palabras de los mensajes de los posts, que en el grupo experimental fue del 0,58% y en el grupo de control fue del 43%. Esta media es en el grupo experimental es del más 34,8% en comparación con el grupo de control. Lo que es interesante también es ver cuáles son las diferencias entre la media del TTR Lemma Chunks 100 y 200. Entonces, en el grupo experimental, en el grupo de control, perdón, la media entre el 0,54 y el 0,43 fue del menos 20%. Y en el grupo experimental, la diferencia entre el 0,62 del TTR Lemma Chunks 100 y el TTR Lemma Chunks 200 fue 0,62, 0,58. La media solo fue del menos 6,5%. ¿Cuáles son las conclusiones? Que el estudio confirma la hipótesis inicial y la importancia de las redes sociales, en este caso Facebook, para la adquisición del léxico, en términos de cantidad y de calidad en una lengua extranjera, en este caso el italiano, lengua extranjera. El uso de la lingüística computacional que hemos usado con las dos herramientas que hemos dicho, nos da una credibilidad y una objetividad a la investigación que es muy alta y a sus resultados. Y nos permite una manera muy rápida y muy eficaz para trabajar con cantidades importantes de datos. Ahora sí, digo, lo hicimos.
Perfecto, muchísimas gracias. Un estudio súper interesante. Yo también he usado este año Facebook en una asignatura de lengua inglesa, en este caso para que practicaran la escritura académica lo más posible. Por supuesto, el léxico está ahí. Y simplemente lo que te quería comentar es que mi alumnado, algunas personas se quejaban porque decían que preferían Instagram en lugar de Facebook. Se quejaban por la red social que yo había elegido. ¿A ti te ha pasado también o se adaptaron perfectamente a Facebook?
No hubo ningún problema y los resultados son los mismos. Hay varios estudios con el uso de Instagram.
Sí, es lo mismo.
Incluso de Snapchat, incluso de Twitter.
Sí.
No, en mi caso no, porque eran todos estudiantes que ya en su vida diaria, cada día lo que usaban era más Facebook que Instagram.
Vosotros. Perfecto. Muy bien, estupendo. ¿Hay alguna pregunta, algún comentario más? O por si acaso, pues luego al final, como siempre, pues muchísimas gracias por esta presentación, un estudio súper interesante y necesario. Sí, desde luego. And the next, so thank you, Fabrizio. And the next poster is constructing a meta-language for analyzing source documents in translation practice. The presenter is Takuya Miyauki, and it has been prepared also with Rei Miyata and Kyo Kageura. So I suppose the person presented is ready. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do. So you just have to share your poster.
Yes, post. Can you see my poster?
Yes, we can
Yes.
see it very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Today, I will talk about our ongoing project, constructing a meta-language for analyzing source documents in translation process. So, please see the please see the background of this research. In the sphere of translation practice, we observe that actors involved in translation use a mixture of local, informal terms and formal terms. However, the concept referred to by those terms are often not shared. It means that it is sometimes difficult to talk about translation among actors involved in different aspects of translation. Especially given in the current boom of neural machine translation, this can potentially cause a socially serious problem. The aim of this research is to systematically organize the meta-language for analyzing source documents, which is regarded as a essential first step to translate something. So first, we distinguished two broad categories in source documents, properties and elements. So document has properties such as genres, media, senders, and so on. However, please note that we don't regard a bundle of properties as a document itself. And document consists of elements such as paragraphs or words or subject and so on. Please note that a set of elements is not identical to document itself. So please see the section 2. So a property of the document consists of a combination of property name, which is regarded as a one-place function, and its value, which saturates the function. We can understand the property of a document in the form of a property name of this source document is the value. Please see the example here. This is submission guidelines of the journal Network Neuroscience. So, this the genre of this document is submission guideline. Okay, and the media of this document is website. Now, function of this document is informative. Receiver of this document is researcher in this field. So, that is property name of this document. For example, genre. For example, we say about genres. So property name is genre and value is submission guideline. Okay, so the same is true of elements of a document. For example, the strings in the red square, this big red square is a paragraph, and string here, network neuroscience, it is proper name. So this is the outline of properties and elements in source documents. So please see the methodology. So we extracted a statement referring to properties or elements in the source document and identified it. Next, we extracted its definition, and we categorized it and organized the hierarchical structure from these target literatures. So the way of constructing a meta language is cyclic and incremental. Please see the 4.1. As a result, our meta languages or properties are 4-level structure at maximum and includes 71 terms in total. Please see the table 1. This is an example of our meta languages or properties. The important is that the terms of functionalist approach is organized from the documentational viewpoint. So this literature is this literature consists of the literature of functionalist approach to translation, but we organize the terms in the viewpoint of documentational viewpoint. So please see the 4.2 meta languages of elements. So our meta languages of elements are 5-level structure maximum and include 229 terms in total. Please see the table 2. This is an example of our meta languages of elements. So the interesting thing is that element order varies in concordance or with that each elements. So and we can see language dependency. So for example, linguistic elements varies in accordance with languages. This is interesting things in the our meta languages of elements. So this is that. Thank you for thank you for hearing our research.
Thank you, Takuya. Very interesting. Yeah, you have really touched on a very important point. Meta language is really essential. So I think that your project is really necessary. And I suppose that you plan to continue working on it and prepare some publications to be incorporated to the field. We don't have much time. I don't see any comment in the chat, but people have your contact, so they can contact you if they have any questions or comments, right? And we are really running out of time, and our last poster has been prepared by Verónica Arnáiz-Uzquiza, María Teresa Ortego-Antón, Susana Álvarez y Álvaro Marín-García, y el título es Transemploy, la formación en traducción en la era digital.
Bueno,
creo que la persona que va a presentar, no sé si es María Teresa o es Verónica.
Soy yo, finalmente. He conseguido solucionar los problemas con el audio, así que espero que no haya ningún otro problema.
Perfecto, Verónica. Pues muchas gracias.
Vale, solo una cosita, porque habíamos mandado, a ver si podéis verlo sin problema.
Sí, se ve. Si lo puedes hacer más grande, perfecto, muy bien.
Vale, el proyecto o la presentación finalmente es formación online para las industrias del lenguaje, la formación en traducción en la era digital, porque, claro, cuando hicimos la propuesta inicial, el proyecto se llamaba TradEmploy o la propuesta de proyecto se llamaba TradEmploy, pero no tuvo éxito esa primera propuesta inicial y ha sido en una convocatoria posterior cuando el mismo proyecto, o básicamente el mismo proyecto, ha sido subvencionado y el título del mismo había cambiado. Ha pasado de ser TradEmploy a formación online para las industrias del lenguaje, pero vamos, la idea o la esencia del proyecto es la misma. El abstract está modificado, con lo cual podéis encontrar la misma información ya actualizada. ¿De acuerdo? Bueno, como comentábamos, se trata de una iniciativa K226, una iniciativa europea, y lo que pretendíamos, lo que planteábamos con esta iniciativa era tratar de llenar el hueco que consideramos que existe y que realmente se ha demostrado que existe entre la formación de los futuros profesionales de las industrias del lenguaje y el mercado, digamos, el mercado profesional en la actualidad. Contábamos los distintos miembros del proyecto, que más adelante presentaré, contábamos con experiencia en los distintos sectores, tanto desde el punto de vista docente como desde el punto de vista empresarial. Éramos conocedores de estas carencias que se estaban detectando, que se están intentando salvar, y desde las iniciativas europeas se están promoviendo salvar estos escollos, pero éramos conscientes de estos huecos que se estaban produciendo desde el punto de vista de la formación. Entonces nos planteábamos cómo podíamos tratar de salvar este hueco desde el punto de vista docente, que es desde el que nosotros nos encontramos. Los que presentamos esta propuesta somos parte del equipo de la Universidad de Valladolid, que somos uno de los socios del consorcio. Somos los IP, los investigadores principales, o grupo principal del consorcio, y el consorcio también está integrado por otra institución académica superior, que es la Université Grenoble-Alpes, la Universidad Francesa, el Instituto Tecnológico CTI griego, y Hermes Traducciones, que sería el consorcio empresarial. Tenemos dos universidades, como es la Universidad de Valladolid y la Universidad de Grenoble. El partner griego, que está a medio camino entre un instituto tecnológico y universitario, con lo cual es un socio perfecto, es el componente tecnológico del equipo, y necesitábamos ese componente empresarial porque, claro, como decíamos, que necesitamos ser conocedores de primera mano de cuáles son las carencias y cuáles son las necesidades del mercado, y es un socio excepcional para nosotros porque nos proporciona mucha información desde distintos niveles, como comentaremos más adelante. Entonces, cada uno de los socios del consorcio tenemos experiencia en diferentes aspectos. En algunos casos, como es el nuestro propio, habíamos trabajado, los distintos miembros del equipo de la Universidad de Valladolid habíamos trabajado, por un lado, en competencias profesionales, en empleabilidad, contamos con distintas iniciativas, proyectos a nivel local y a nivel comunitario en esas iniciativas, formación por un lado en tecnologías y búsqueda de las soluciones de empleabilidad para nuestros egresados. Por parte de la Universidad de Grenoble contaban con mucha experiencia también en formación de traductores, formación tecnológica y formación en nuevas tecnologías y en últimas tecnologías de los mercados profesionales. El Instituto Tecnológico tiene amplia experiencia en plataformas de docencia online, y por lo que respecta a Hermes, cuentan con amplia experiencia también con colaboración y participación en proyectos europeos en formación profesional de traductores. Entonces consideramos que era una formación o un grupo perfecto para poder llegar a poder alcanzar o poder cubrir los objetivos que nos planteábamos dentro de este proyecto. Como decíamos, lo que nos planteábamos es que existen una serie de carencias que no se están cubriendo en la mayoría de los casos desde los planes formativos actuales, no solamente desde las facultades de traducción o los estudios de traducción, sino desde los distintos planes formativos de los futuros profesionales de la lengua, y nos planteábamos cuáles eran las necesidades y cuáles eran los aspectos en los que podíamos colaborar, ofreciendo una formación lo más accesible y lo más abierta posible. Esta iniciativa surgió antes de la pandemia actual, pero digamos que tampoco cambió mucho lo que era la esencia de la iniciativa en sí. Nos planteábamos que era necesario ofrecer una formación flexible, accesible, digamos, accesible en el más amplio sentido de la palabra, para cualquier persona, en cualquier lugar, en cualquier situación económica, en cualquier situación de capacidades o discapacidades. Entonces, pretendíamos, siguiendo también las tradiciones de proyectos anteriores de distintos socios del consorcio, planteamos que necesitábamos proporcionar ese tipo de formación. ¿Qué es lo que plantea o qué es lo que se plantea desde esta formación? Nosotros desde el proyecto, es un proyecto que tendrá una duración de 2 años, está estructurado en 16 paquetes de trabajo y lo que planteamos es ofrecer una formación modular flexible e inclusiva, como decíamos. Se plantea la creación de 5 módulos que podrán cursarse de forma independiente o como un plan conjunto y en el que se abordarán distintos aspectos que consideramos esenciales en la formación de esos futuros profesionales de las industrias del lenguaje. En un primer caso será una formación que será en lengua inglesa, pero será accesible a través de las distintas lenguas, digamos, locales, consideramos. O sea, será el audio y los materiales serán básicamente en inglés, pero los contenidos audiovisuales que se generen estarán subtitulados y audiodescritos a las distintas lenguas, a francés, español y griego en este caso. Decíamos que es un proyecto que se estructura en torno a 5 módulos. El primero de ellos es Skills for the Job Market, aspectos esenciales en la práctica profesional, aspectos generales a modo de módulo introductorio para los futuros profesionales. En segundo lugar, tenemos un módulo tecnológico que será el encargado de los TENS, de los Translation Environment Tools, para complementar o introducir componentes tecnológicos esenciales para los futuros profesionales. Como decíamos, como se pretende que no sea un paquete estanco y de obligada compleción para todos los que quieran enrolarse o participar en el módulo, aquellos profesionales o futuros profesionales que lo deseen podrán completar solamente aquellos módulos que para ellos sean necesarios. Puede que contemos con algunos profesionales o futuros profesionales que ya tengan conocimientos nuevos o previos de tecnologías, con lo cual este módulo sería innecesario para ellos, pero puede que ya haya alguien que venga de formación más teórica o más lingüística, más alejada de las tecnologías profesionales, que sea este módulo necesario para ellos. En tercer lugar tenemos Project Management. En cuarto lugar tenemos Content Management, para separar bien estas partes que consideramos esenciales de esa formación profesional. Y por último tenemos un módulo que le hemos denominado local, porque es un módulo que se desarrollará en paralelo en cada uno de los países socios y que abordará esos aspectos esenciales para la práctica profesional que son específicos de cada uno de los países. Puede que haya alguno de los participantes que quiera, alguno de los futuros estudiantes que quiera cursar, por ejemplo, estos módulos profesionales en 2 de los contextos, porque pueden ser de su interés profesional, por ejemplo, en España y en Francia. Pero bueno, lo que pretendemos hacer es ofrecer una visión general, pero también un poco específica de cuáles son las especificidades del mercado profesional en cada uno de los contextos. Cada uno de estos módulos, digamos, son 5 módulos, en principio estarían planteándose como una formación que estaría estructurada en ECTS y se plantea que ellos a su vez tengan una subdivisión. En principio estamos trabajando, todavía estamos en las partes iniciales del proyecto porque el proyecto ha comenzado este mes, se va a desarrollar a lo largo de 2 años, desde este mes de mayo, y se plantea que originalmente pueda ser cada uno de los módulos de unos 8 ECTS. Pero bueno, todavía estamos viendo cómo podemos estructurarlo. ¿Qué es lo que queremos desarrollar o qué es lo que va a desarrollarse?
Tienes que acabar, Verónica, ya no tenemos tiempo. 30 segundos.
De acuerdo. Bueno, pues vamos a desarrollar un diseño de una plataforma para integrar todos estos contenidos. Desarrollaremos el curso como tal y a la vez desarrollaremos un manual que recoja todos los materiales que se han ido desarrollando para el curso en sí y para el desarrollo de la plataforma en sí. Y bueno, tenéis aquí los datos de consulta y datos de contacto por si estáis interesados en el proyecto y toda la información que pueda venir más adelante. Y nada, muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Verónica, súper interesante. Nada, lo bueno de esto será ver la presentación en otros congresos para ver cómo va evolucionando, pero desde luego pinta muy bien, ¿no? Esa formación que estáis preparando y que vaya subtitulada, que no quede solo en inglés, sino que llegue en francés, en español, en griego, que va a tener una proyección, yo creo, muy importante y es un aspecto muy necesario el que estáis cubriendo. No veo comentarios en el chat, gracias a vosotras. Y a vosotros. Nada, hay personas que dicen que están dando maravilloso proyecto, es verdad, es un proyecto súper interesante, ya en siguientes fases se va a ver. Y pues nada, que acabamos justo a tiempo, ahora tenéis un pequeño descanso y después ya empezamos con la plenaria. Muchísimas gracias a cada persona por haber presentado, por haber elegido entre textos. Thank you very much everybody for having chosen entre textos to present your posters. They have been fantastic presentations and I have really enjoyed and learned a lot. So thank you very much, and you have the contacts of all the presenters to continue being in touch and probably exchange conversations and continue growing. Okay, so thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
Bye.
Ok, Alicia, pues nada, muchas gracias, todo bien.